The mysterious woman in the movie shows up with charm and confidence, grabbing the attention of every employee in the store. She asks for a personalized shopping service where every detail has to be perfect. The store turns into a fashion runway with music, sparkling lights, and models showing off luxury outfits and accessories. The woman is served with a special fashion show just for her. When the woman tries on the clothes she picked, she runs into a problem with buttoning the shirt. The staff quickly offers to prepare a larger size. However, she misunderstands that the staff is hinting at her weight, leading to a tense situation. After a moment of tension, the woman can't help but laugh when she realizes the truth. Turns out, all the employees are part of the VIP team at Legend Company, rehearsing to provide perfect service for wealthy clients. They aren't real employees but are just practicing for a big event. Legend Company completes its mission excellently. The dedicated service and attention to every detail have made the store one of the top companies in the local area. The company even established a specialized VIP department. The woman playing the rich lady in the rehearsal is named Jean, who is the sales director of the VIP department, while her husband, Bakat, is the manager of the VIP department. Jean and Bakat have a fulfilling life and career, and they are a couple everyone admires. Inside the VIP department, there are two other beautiful female members, one wearing a yellow shirt named Baiban, and one wearing a pink dress named Mina. I wish I could marry someone like that. Jean says that Mina's husband is also great. Mina casually asks, "Do you want to swap?" As soon as these words are spoken, everyone is stunned. Mina hurriedly explains that it was just a joke. Bakat also quickly jumps in to save the situation, calling for everyone to cheer for the team together. But not long after, the team gets a beautiful new member named Lolita. She got in thanks to a connection with the company's vice president. Jean represents everyone to welcome her. Jean is very satisfied with her current life and work. She trusts her husband and follows his lead. With outstanding business skills, she works hard with her subordinates, facing challenge after challenge. This time, the team gets a task to find a pair of high heels that a client needs within a set time, but right now, this model isn't available in the country. Jean brings many similar shoes for the wealthy lady to choose from, but the lady insists on only the pair she needs. Jean and the team try hard to find them but fail. Luckily, Bakat has many connections and resources. Jean finds the stock at a hoarding shop in a remote place. To make it in time, she immediately takes a motorbike to get the goods. Finally, they get the shoes the client needs. But the wealthy woman passed away from heart disease. Jin's group later attends the client's funeral. They learn that the woman wanted to wear these shoes to attend a charity event, wanting her grandson to remember her as a kind grandmother. The whole group comes to a common conclusion. No matter how rich you are, family is still the most important thing. After a day of work, Jean and her husband go home to rest. They hold hands like a couple deeply in love, but when they get home, Jean opens the door to the nursery and gets lost in memories. They have been married for many years but have no children. Turns out years ago, Jean was pregnant and they were looking forward to the baby, but in the end the baby didn't come to them, and until now Jean still can't have kids. This has become the biggest regret in her heart. So, she asks her husband to come home early to carry out the baby-making plan together. She prepares a lavish dinner, takes a shower, puts on sexy pajamas, and applies makeup carefully, then urges her husband to come home early. Just as Bakat is about to leave, a text message interrupts him. At the same time, Mina also receives a message and hurriedly catches a cab to leave. Baiban receives a message and asks the driver to take her back to the company. Lolita seems to get a message too and decides to turn back. At the office, Bakat indeed meets a woman. He says they shouldn't meet like this. At this moment, someone is peeking from outside the office. Suddenly, the sound of keys falling on the ground makes a noise and catches Bakat's attention. Bakat goes out to look for the person but doesn't see anyone. Meanwhile, Jean is waiting for her husband who hasn't returned, but instead she welcomes her mother for a visit. Jean hurriedly changes out of her pajamas. It turns out her mother brought traditional medicine to help with conception. That night, Bakat comes home late. Jean wanted to do the baby-making plan with her husband, but he falls asleep right after getting back. When she is about to go to sleep, her husband's phone gets a message. Jean doesn't pay attention to it, but right after, her phone also gets a message. The message says, "Your husband's mistress is on your team." The shock hits her like a bolt of lightning. She turns her head in a daze to look at her husband sleeping soundly. She immediately takes her husband's phone to check clearly, but for some reason, the phone has a password. Jean calls the number in the message but no one answers. Thinking about how her husband often works overtime and comes home late recently, Jean can't help but suspect her husband really has someone else. The next day, she tries to test her husband, saying that the message on his phone last night woke her up. Bakat explains it was just a spam message and even actively gives his phone to his wife, revealing the password for her to check. Jean decides to trust her husband and gives the phone back to him. At the same time, she reminds her husband of the loving promise he made to her in the past. Bakat promised he would never let go of her hand and declared that his love could only be for her. He promised to cherish their love until they both grow old and leave this world. Although her husband says he remembers his promise, a woman's intuition makes her start overthinking. After that, Jean starts investigation mode like a detective. She frequently observes the 3 beautiful girls in the group. One day, she doesn't see her husband in the office, so she goes out to look for him and finds her husband talking privately with Mina. She can't help but suspect that this woman is her husband's mistress. Then, she sees the 2 of them leave the company one after another. Using a meeting as an excuse, Jean checks the logbook and realizes there are no meetings today. So, she follows Mina and finds out that she just went to a preschool to visit her 2 kids. Knowing the truth, Jean removes Mina from the suspect list. But what she doesn't know is that right now, her husband is going to a hotel to check out a room, and he asks the staff to keep it a secret. Returning home, Jean gets another message from her husband saying he will be late. This makes her suspicious again. She suspects her husband is just using work as an excuse, and it turns out Jin's intuition is right. At this moment, Bakat is in his car, and it seems he just called Bon. He says, "I don't want Jean to be sad anymore. We shouldn't meet like this anymore." The next day, when Jean hands documents to her husband, she asks about him coming home late last night. Just then, Bakat's phone rings. Bakat lies that he has an appointment with a colleague named No to work at noon. But Jean knows that No went on a business trip and will only return in 2 or 3 days. Jean hurriedly goes to find her husband, but she is a step too late. He has already driven away. That night, Jean exposed her husband's lie, asking if No had just returned from Singapore. Bakat's phone rang again. He intended to go outside to listen, but his wife insisted he answer right there at the dining table. Bakat hesitated and didn't dare pick up the phone, finally making an excuse that the other person had hung up. But not long after, the phone rang again, and Bakat had to answer it. The call was from No saying hello. To confirm the person on the line was No, Jean insisted on talking to him over the phone, and indeed, No's voice rang out. He admitted he had just returned from a business trip. Not long after, Jean realized she was too stressed and had a mental breakdown, so she confessed to her husband about the anonymous message, saying that she suspected he had someone else. Bakat comforted his wife, advising her not to overthink. But when his wife went out, he called his colleague No, thanking him for helping act out the play to deceive his wife. It turned out, when Bakat noticed his wife suspected him, he made a plan with his friends to clear her suspicion. But what Bakat didn't expect was that an unintentional remark by No made the suspicion in his wife's heart rise again. Turned out, last time No accidentally met Bon at a hotel and fell for her at first sight. When he went to the VIP department and met Bon again, he realized they were colleagues in different departments. To pursue her, No intentionally squeezed into the same elevator with her. But unexpectedly, a malfunction with the elevator made Bon terrified. She recalled images of being assaulted, making her panicked and mentally disturbed. Curious, No asked Jean about Bon's condition. Jean accidentally found out that 2 days ago, No had met Bon at a hotel, so she suspected that the woman she was looking for was Bon. She hurriedly asked about Bon's whereabouts and learned that she was pretending to be a customer to visit the branches. Bon and Lolita changed into black suits, pretending to be office workers to shop at a branch. The service staff saw them dressed simply and made scornful remarks. Suddenly, the sound of breaking glass rang out. A girl accidentally broke a cup. The staff saw she was dressed simply and coldly told her not to make noise. The girl's friend said she would pay for it. The staff saw the friend was dressed gorgeously and immediately smiled to welcome her. Bon observed everything and went to ask the staff for a shopping bag, but was told they were out of bags. Just then, a wealthy lady asked another staff member to get a bag for her. When asked to wait a moment, the staff seemed unable to keep hiding it, and revealed that shopping bags were only for special customers. Bon immediately revealed her identity. She is a senior manager sent from the headquarters to secretly inspect the branches. She said the girl dressed simply who broke the cup earlier was a particularly noble VIP member, and she would report the staff's discrimination against customers to headquarters. Bon quickly reported the incident to Bakat. Bakat praised Bon for working very effectively. When Bon intended to help him adjust his tie, to avoid misunderstanding, Bakat hurriedly adjusted it himself. Jean saw those ambiguous gestures. Like a detective, she observed her 3 beautiful colleagues. She saw her husband texting, and all 3 girls also took out their phones to reply at the same time. This made Jean feel confused. She even imagined seeing her husband kissing all 3 of them. She couldn't stop thinking, not knowing which of her colleagues had cheated with her husband. Unable to sit still anymore, Jean dragged her husband out and took him to a hotel. It turned out, a male guest had used the VIP service many times. Jean checked and discovered the person actually using it was a woman. She brought her husband there to ensure the customer's rights were not violated. but discovered the person using the VIP service was that guest's mistress. Jean took the opportunity to advise her husband that the guest's wife was a good woman and would be heartbroken if she found out her husband was having an affair. She hoped a similar thing wouldn't happen to her and wanted her husband to go home together. However, Bakat said he needed to work overtime and told his wife to go home first. When his wife was gone, he immediately caught a taxi and left. But he didn't know that his wife didn't go home but followed him to the hotel. When receiving a call from his wife asking where he was, Bakat lied that he was discussing work with a colleague. Hearing the silence from the other end of the line, sensing something bad, he turned his head and discovered his wife standing opposite him. This time he couldn't deny it anymore. The couple looked at each other. Both were mentally devastated. Jean confirmed her husband had truly had an affair. She screamed in pain, unable to believe this truth. Although her husband said everything was over, the woman's heart, hurting like it was cut, couldn't listen to the explanation. She left her husband alone and returned home. That night, she cried for a long time and remembered the first moment she met her husband. That day, when she just arrived at the company to work, she discovered that her friend Baibon also worked at this company. After that, she admired Bakat's hard work and progress, so she actively showed affection for him, and they officially started a romantic relationship. When recalling the loving promise her husband once gave her in the past, now in Jin's eyes, it was just like a bad joke. That night, Bakat slept on the sofa. The next day, he wanted to talk and apologize to his wife, but Jean couldn't accept her husband's explanation. She cried and recounted her pain to her uncle. After being comforted and enlightened by her uncle, Jean went to the company to work but received a beautiful bouquet from her husband. In a fit of anger, Jean threw the bouquet to the side of the table. She remembered the one-year anniversary of their dating, when Bakat also gave her a flower. Remembering that they used to truly love each other, Jean calmed down and decided to talk to her husband, asking him not to deceive her anymore and asking who that woman was, and if it was someone she knew. Bakat denied it and begged Jean to give him a chance, using the rest of his life to make amends. Seeing her husband sincerely apologizing and begging for forgiveness, Jean decided to give her husband another chance. Not long after that, she unexpectedly discovered that the anonymous message was sent from her own computer. This meant that the woman was truly a member of her team, and at the same time showed that her husband had deceived her again. Jean kept thinking about the three beauties in her team, wondering who had betrayed her. Because of this, she frequently dreamed of her husband having an affair, and since then could not sleep well anymore. She was determined to find the woman behind it all. That day, she saw Lolita being given a hard time by the vice president's wife. It turned out the ambiguous relationship between Lolita and the vice president was known by his wife, and she intentionally made things difficult, scolded, and humiliated Lolita. Jean witnessed this scene and hurriedly went to rescue Lolita. After handling it for a while, Jean removed Lolita from the suspect list. That day, by chance, she discovered that Baibon and her husband used to be university classmates. She looked back at her husband's updates from many years ago and saw that this was true, but both Baibon and her husband had never told her about this. Then she saw her husband hugging Baibon intimately. Witnessing this scene, she mistakenly thought that Baibon was the one who had betrayed her. Baibon hurriedly chased after her to explain. It turned out Baibon's mother had gone bankrupt and owed a large amount of money. She had sold all her valuable things to pay the debt. That day, she discovered there were branded items in the company that no one claimed. She decided to steal them to sell and pay the debt, but to do that, she needed Bakat's account to unlock the safe. Just as she was doing it, she was caught red-handed by Bakat. After knowing the details of the incident, Bakat advised Baibon to rebuild her life and comforted her, saying to slowly find a way to solve it. Jean witnessed this scene and misunderstood the situation. Jean also believed in Baibon's sincere explanation. She asked her husband again, "Who is that woman really?" Bakat told his wife that it wasn't Baibon. Jean saw that her husband wasn't telling the truth, so she felt very sad and frustrated. She wondered if it was Mina, the mother of the two children. Maybe Jin's intuition was right. That day, Mina returned home and showed signs of morning sickness. She rubbed her stomach with a worried look. Her husband thought she was sick from overworking and suggested she quit her job to stay home and be a housewife. But that only made Mina even more tired. She complained that being a wife and a mother made her feel pressured, expressing a wish to live more freely and lightly. Then, she decided to pack her luggage and leave home. After these troubles, Jean removed Baibon from the suspect list and knew she was drowning in debt. She offered a check to lend Baibon money to pay the debt, but Baibon was angry because Jean didn't trust her, so she refused the help. Jean frankly told her that her husband had betrayed her, and showed the anonymous message to prove that the woman was in the VIP team. Baibon was very shocked to hear the story and tried to comfort Jin's spirit. That day, when Bakat went to the hospital, he accidentally met Mina. Their eyes met with great meaning. Suddenly, Jean came to greet Bakat, making Mina panicked and hurriedly hide. It turned out Jin's mother was sick. She thought Bakat also came to visit her mother, but she had never told her husband about this. When she asked how he knew, Bakat was confused and didn't know how to answer. Seeing his wife think it was Bon who told him, he immediately agreed with that answer. Jin didn't think much of it at that moment, but she didn't know that Mina was hiding not far away. Extremely panicked. When she returned, Mina looked at the pregnancy test result and cried out of sadness. Then she contacted Bakat to talk tomorrow. The next morning, she really chatted in Bakat's office for quite a long time. Bon witnessed this. Considering that Bakat and she were old classmates and he had helped her, she frankly expressed to him that she knew he had betrayed Jin. Bon seemed very disappointed and took this chance to warn him to stop. Meanwhile, Jin and her mother successfully reconciled. She felt inspired and used that anonymous message to expose her husband's lie. She said the message was sent from her computer through a virtual number. She demanded her husband clarify who the woman was but was refused. Angry, Jin prepared her things to leave the house. Seeing that, Bakat begged his wife to stay, while he decided to be the one to leave. Jin watched him go and cried sobbing again. That day, she accidentally heard from a colleague that Mina was pregnant and went to ask her husband about this news, but was told that Mina hadn't been home recently. She also received an important clue from a close friend that Mina and Lolita could both be the other woman. It turned out, Bon went to rent a cheap apartment and discovered that the person moving into the new luxury apartment was Lolita. She immediately understood that the rumors at the company about Lolita might be true. Bon reminded her not to let men take advantage of her. However, Lolita also had a secret no one knew. Her mother needed a large amount of money for medical treatment, so she might have voluntarily let herself be used to cover the costs. After viewing the rental apartment, Bon returned to the company and told Jin she had received a message. That night, she went back to the company to get documents and actually saw Bakat with a woman in the office, but she couldn't see the woman's face. Then, she went to the entrance of the shopping mall to watch and discovered the woman coming out first was Mina, followed by Lolita also walking out of the office building. Jin also learned that the security camera system had a 6-month backup, so she hurriedly went to check the surveillance video. However, she discovered that the backup had been taken by Bakat first. Angry, she confronted her husband and accused him of still protecting the other woman. Her husband's action completely triggered the spirit of resistance in Jin. After reviewing the surveillance video, Bakat confronted that woman and asked why she sent such information to Jin. He scolded the woman for her inappropriate behavior and said their relationship ended here. However, he still couldn't resist the woman's begging and went to pick her up. Bakat said this was the last time they would meet secretly. Not long after, Bakat knocked on the door and the woman rushed into his arms. Afterward, Mina was taken home by a car. Her husband had been waiting for her for a long time and asked Mina who took her home, and also asked if she was having an affair. A fierce argument broke out between them. After chasing her husband away, Mina just entered the room when she received a message. At the same time, Lolita also received a message. It turned out, this was a trap message sent by Jin from the computer. She wanted to check who would come to the appointment as requested by the message. Jin discovered the person coming to the appointment was Mina. At that time, she didn't step up to expose Mina, because the company would have an important diamond auction tomorrow. She decided she would find Mina to ask clearly after the event. The next day, the diamond auction event took place as planned. The VIP staff were all busy with work, but Jin couldn't control herself and kept looking at Mina. Bon saw that and asked her the reason. After knowing the test result and Jin's decision, she supported that decision. Not long after, many distinguished guests came to attend the event. Right after that, Jin discovered there was a problem with the wine used to serve guests. She angrily scolded Mina, who was in charge of this, and dragged her to a deserted place to educate her. Mina apologized and begged for forgiveness from Jin. Seeing Bakat coming to say good words for Mina made the fire of anger in Jin's heart burn even more. She declared that if Mina made a mistake again next time, she would not forgive her. Mina felt heartbroken. Jin didn't remember her past efforts and contributions at all, treating her in a cold and cruel way. To Jin, if there is a mistake, there must be a punishment. Jin's decisive words made Mina feel very hurt. She slipped into a deserted place to be sad. When thinking about the marketing manager asking her to install surveillance cameras at the venue and because of Jin's attitude, she decided to betray the VIP team. She secretly placed a hidden camera in a flower basket at the event. The diamond auction soon began. Many models with slender bodies walked onto the stage to show off expensive and gorgeous diamond necklaces. The VIP guests were excitedly enjoying this wonderful performance. Jin and her colleagues noticed that the vice president didn't invite his wife but invited his father-in-law to attend. They guessed that there might be another activity besides the auction. In fact, their speculation was correct. After the auction ended, the vice president asked to prepare a room to hold a closed shareholder meeting. Bakat informed Jin that they would have a private activity for shareholders and their families, and asked to keep this secret. He assigned only himself and Lolita to be the servers for the shareholders, following the direct order of the vice president. The colleagues spoke up to defend Jean, complaining about the vice president not letting Jean take the main role in receiving shareholders, but letting his rumored mistress join in. Hearing the gossip, Lolita approached to apologize to Jean, saying she didn't intend to compete with Jean, and confirmed it was the vice president's idea. Jean understood and told her to prepare carefully to serve well. Afterward, Lolita started preparing the wine to serve. While checking the wine, Mina used this opportunity to place another hidden camera in the flower basket. Then, she watched the video from the surveillance camera on her phone and saw a man approach to talk to Lolita. Seeing that, Bakat stepped up to help her get out of that situation. At this time, the vice president started speaking at the meeting. He requested that in the next shareholder meeting, the shareholders ask his father to resign to support him becoming the president. His father-in-law also spoke up in support, saying that he would lead the company to achieve new milestones. Meanwhile, the camera secretly recorded this whole event. Jean later found out from Mina's husband that he had performed a sterilization procedure. This news was like a bolt of lightning. She suspected the child in Mina's belly was Bakat's, so she went to meet Mina to ask why she did that. Mina at first thought that Jean discovered she placed the surveillance camera and admitted, "I had to do it. If I didn't, I would have to endure and work here until I die. Is that the reason you became Bakat's mistress?" This moment, Mina understood that her superior misunderstood the relationship between her and Bakat. Knowing the message the previous night was sent by Jean, she hurriedly denied it and intended to explain more when a guy came to report the news that the vice president's wife had arrived. So, they hurriedly went out to stop her, but the wife rushed straight into the meeting room and saw her husband talking to Lolita. The anger exploded, making her believe even more that Lolita was her husband's mistress. Bakat tried to pull Lolita away but was pulled back by the wife, and she humiliated Lolita in front of everyone. No one dared to intervene. Only Jean took off her jacket for Lolita to wear, led her out of the meeting room, and comforted her. Afterward, the wife was scolded by her father for her stupid action, damaging her husband's reputation, which could make the shareholders not support him as president. However, she didn't agree with her father and confided in Jean that, although she couldn't control her husband, she felt better after humiliating Lolita. Meanwhile, Mina secretly took back the camera, and when she was preparing to leave, her husband came to demand an explanation. Seeing her husband suspected her of having an affair, Mina explained that the child was his. The reason she hid it was because she wanted to have an abortion because 2 children made her too tired. Mina said she loved her family but also loved her job. While they were arguing, Bon came to intervene. Mina explained further that her husband said he had the sterilization procedure, but on that day, her husband cried and ran out of the operating room, saying he didn't dare to do it. She said she went to the appointment that day to find out who sent the message and know who was in a relationship with Bakat. After speaking, Mina fainted. Bon retold everything to Jean. Jean felt haunted by this again. That day, a handsome guy in the team was using Bakat's computer and accidentally discovered a video clip. In the video, Bakat and Lolita had intimate gestures. Later, Bakat went to visit Lolita again. She hugged him tight and cried, thanking him for visiting. They got lost in memories of the past. A year ago, Lolita was just a regular sales employee. She witnessed the intimate relationship between Bakat and his wife. Not long after, at the request of the vice president, Bakat visited her. The vice president gave her a bank card for her to use freely, and Bakat also left his business card, saying she could contact him anytime if she needed help. When leaving, he discovered her door was broken and thoughtfully called someone to come fix it. They returned to the present. Bakat was taking care of Lolita resting, and she grabbed his hand. Just then, Bakat received a call from his wife, saying she wanted to meet him tomorrow morning. Bakat was comforting Lolita, preparing to leave, but Lolita chased after him and hugged him, begging him not to abandon her. What they didn't know was that this scene was recorded by the dashcam in the car. Bakat still left despite Lolita holding him back. He returned to his friend No's house. No advised Bakat not to deceive Jean. At this moment, Bakat got lost in memories. That day, he was taking Lolita home when he received news his father passed away. He hurriedly ran to see his father's face one last time, but his half-brothers chased him out. Bakat stood sadly in the rain alone. Lolita came and comforted him. Bakat told Lolita his secret, that he and she were both children of mistresses. They sympathized with each other and hugged to find warmth, but right after that, the two kissed. No advised Bakat to confess his secret to Jean. The next morning, Bakat went to talk to his wife. He said that person was very pitiful since childhood, and he really once wanted to go with her to the end of his life, but he ruined everything and now they couldn't go back to how it was before. Bakat even suggested divorcing his wife. This made Jean feel very devastated. They could break up, but Bakat didn't have the right to say those words to her. Jean couldn't accept this truth. While they were arguing, her mother-in-law came to visit, bringing delicious food and medicine to help with conception. Jean tried to appear happy, holding back her tears, recounting that a friend of hers had a cheating husband, and she was worried that Bakat would also betray her. Her mother-in-law affirmed that Bakat would never do that and asked him to promise never to betray Jean. Under his mother's pressure, Bakat had to promise not to hurt Jean. His mother told her son, "Forever do not imitate your father. Unfaithfulness will cause great pain." She hoped her child would have a fulfilling, happy family. After her husband left, Jean was heartbroken and put the photo of her and her husband in the drawer, but accidentally saw a hospital paper in there. She was curious to know who the name on the paper was. The next day, she and Lolita went on a business trip together. Perhaps feeling guilty, Lolita panicked and fell down. Jean kindly helped her put a band-aid on the wound on her knee. Seeing Jean kindly helping, Lolita with a guilty conscience apologized to Jean. Jean thought Lolita was hinting at the incident of having wine poured on her, so she comforted her that she didn't need to take it to heart. At that time, Lolita received a call from the hospital, and Jean went with her to visit her mother. When Jean saw the patient's name outside the hospital room, she realized that the other paper belonged to Lolita's mother. On the other hand, after returning from the hospital, Mina secretly met with the marketing manager. She sent him the video from the surveillance camera because he promised to promote her and increase her salary. When receiving the video, the marketing manager forwarded it to his direct boss, the marketing executive director, who is the younger brother of the vice president. The two brothers were fighting for the right to inherit the company with silent battles. Seeing his older brother trying to convince shareholders to have their father resign and support him as president, the younger brother used the video of Lolita getting wine splashed on her as evidence, posted online. The video exposed that the vice president had a mistress, damaging his reputation. The video immediately became hot news online. In a moment, everyone knew Lolita was the mistress of the company's vice president. Everyone pointed fingers and gossiped loudly. Mina, when seeing the video, hurriedly called the marketing manager. She was worried people would discover she was the one who filmed that video. The marketing manager comforted her that no one would find out. The vice president at first thought his own wife posted the video, but his wife denied it and even said, "I thank the person who posted the video for making me become a hero who dared to punish the third party." The video also made the VIP department a complete mess. People kept calling to confirm the truth of the incident. They couldn't find who posted the video. Seeing everyone pointing fingers at Lolita, Jean kindly suggested Lolita go home to rest. Lolita was grateful for Jin's concern and care. The marketing manager knew this video had become headline news. He was very happy because this would stain his brother's reputation. The father might revoke his brother's position to protect the company's image, and then he could officially replace him. Meanwhile, the vice president was also scolded by his father, who criticized that the video made the company's stock price drop. He demanded his son handle this negative news quickly. When the VIP members came to the company's VIP department, they together demanded to fire Lolita, expressing that they are legal wives and don't want a third party serving them. If not, they would cancel all cooperation with the company. Jean immediately presented the client's demands to her husband and suggested reporting to the vice president to fire Lolita. Right at this moment, Bakat's phone rang. Jean stepped back to the office door, and that call was from Lolita. She had been recognized and surrounded for photos while at the hospital. Due to the video spreading like crazy, Lolita cried and told Bakat about what she had been through. Bakat also called the doctor to ask about Lolita's mother's condition. Jean stood outside eavesdropping. Hearing the patient's name, she thought there might be other clues in her husband's car. So she took Bakat's car keys, went to the car, and searched but found nothing. Finally, she took the dashcam from the car to watch and saw Lolita hugging Bakat. She couldn't believe that the woman rumored with the vice president had a relationship with her husband. This moment, she remembered the words Bakat and Lolita had said to her and finally understood their meaning. Jean, overwhelmed with emotion, went to find her uncle to confide in him. Jean decided she would talk to them privately and then decisively end this matter. She returned to the company and saw Bakat wasn't in the office. This time, Mina also came and explained to everyone that she didn't have a relationship with Bakat. That day, when she returned to the office, she accidentally saw Lolita and Bakat together. Jean apologized to Mina, very sorry for misunderstanding her before. After that, Jean waited for her husband at the office, but unexpectedly Bakat was called by the vice president to attend a press conference. At the press conference, the vice president announced a DNA test report, proving that Lolita is his biological daughter, not a mistress. He said that before getting married, he dated a woman and just recently found out he had a child. He even claimed his wife knew the truth beforehand. This broadcast caused a stir in public opinion. Immediately, Lolita went from being a hated person for being a third party to suddenly becoming a rich girl everyone sympathized with. Jean, seeing this news, was surprised and changed her decision. She pretended not to know about her husband and Lolita's affair. So, when Bakat asked what Jean wanted to talk about, she used the incident of Lolita getting wine splashed on her as an excuse. Now with her identity made public, everything was resolved. Jean sadly remembered when she had a miscarriage. Her husband quickly got over the sadness. She thought that at that time her husband was with Lolita. Remembering that her husband had betrayed her for so long, she decided to take revenge on those who hurt her. The bad news about the vice president was also resolved. The father was happy to have a granddaughter and asked his son to bring Lolita home for dinner. The old man personally picked food for his granddaughter and welcomed her. He also asked the wealthy lady, the vice president's wife, to apologize to Lolita. The marketing manager's plan completely failed. He just hoped his brother's VIP business would be in trouble. After that, Lolita became the vice president's princess. She dressed more gorgeously and was more respected by everyone. Everyone greeted her politely, afraid of affecting their career if they bothered her. The vice president brought his daughter to the VIP department and officially introduced Lolita's identity, and at the same time asked everyone to care more for his daughter, and announced that she would take a senior management position. Later, Lolita invited the whole team to her father's house for dinner, expressing gratitude for the care everyone gave her recently and apologizing for hiding her true identity. However, Jean asked Lolita if she had a boyfriend yet, and also indirectly asked her husband that if someone was Lolita's boyfriend, they would surely be very happy. Bakat was confused and didn't know how to answer his wife. Lolita hurriedly stepped in to save the situation for him and invited everyone to her father's house for dinner. Jean immediately demanded her husband go with her. Later, to please the vice president, Bakat gave Lolita the tasks that were supposed to be Jin's. Although Jean was very sad, she was helpless. People around were not convinced and worried that Lolita wasn't capable of handling this job. After hearing advice from friends and his conscience waking up, Bakat apologized to his wife and admitted that giving the work to Lolita was the vice president's order. However, Jean didn't believe her husband's words. She asked, if he had the power to choose between her and Lolita, who would he choose? Bakat chose silence and didn't answer his wife. Jean was heartbroken by her husband's reaction and asked him to pick her up the next day to attend the vice president's family party. That day, when Bakat prepared to pick up his wife, he discovered the memory card in the car was gone. Meanwhile, Jean was inserting the memory card into the computer and printing out some documents. Not long after, she received a call from her husband and told him that because she needed to discuss some things with the vice president, she had left early. Sensing something bad, Bakat hurriedly chased after her. He asked his wife what she wanted to discuss with the vice president. Jean said he would know soon. While rushing to leave, Jean accidentally dropped the documents she was holding. Lolita came to help pick them up, but Bakat wanted Lolita to give the documents to him. However, Jean snatched them and was determined to give them to the vice president, saying it was about Lolita. Jean gave the documents to the vice president. He finished looking and praised Lolita's work as very good. It turned out to be confirmation documents from clients about Lolita's work. Jean also praised Lolita as capable and said she would bring the vice president bigger surprises. Meanwhile, Bakat looked worried. He asked his wife about the memory card, but she kept a mysterious attitude and didn't want to answer. Feeling something was wrong, Bakat wanted to pull his wife away, but Jean decided to stay and attend the party. The family party soon started, and the vice president announced he would promote Bakat to senior manager and let Lolita replace his position as VIP director, which was the position Jean deserved. Although the team was unhappy, no one dared to object. Only the vice president's wife said that only Jean was suitable for that position. However, the vice president was determined to let his daughter be the manager. Jean raised her glass, congratulating Bakat and Lolita, and said she would give them a special gift. Then, she played the video from the memory card. It was the video of Lolita hugging Bakat. Everyone knew their relationship when seeing this scene. The vice president was extremely surprised by the incident. Jean told that a year ago, when she had a miscarriage, Bakat took the task from the vice president to take care of Lolita, right when she was suffering the most. Facing Jin's criticism, Bakat chose silence, while Lolita cried out of heartbreak. The vice president also got angry, grabbed Bakat's shoulder and scolded him. But the situation had reached this point. He could only ask everyone to leave early. Bakat also felt hurt by his wife's action. Jean declared she would make those who hurt her pay the price. From then on, their marriage was completely fractured. After his wife left, Bakat returned to comfort Lolita. In anger, the vice president slapped Bakat on the face, scolding him for betraying his trust and fearing that the video leaking out would destroy his career. He demanded Bakat not let the video spread. So, Bakat hurriedly contacted his wife, but when she didn't pick up, his only option was to text her the vice president's order. Jean called her husband back. Since the VIP team was built by her own hands, she would keep the secret. The other team members also received the order from the vice president. The next day, Jean went to work like nothing happened, while Lolita asked for leave and didn't come to the company. They received an order to organize a birthday party for a client's daughter. Jean immediately assigned tasks to the members, preparing the perfect birthday venue according to the client's request. While everything was going smoothly, the vice president brought Lolita to the scene and asked her to greet Jean. The vice president clearly stood on his daughter's side and made Jean understand that she was just a small employee in the company. Jean felt sad and lonely. In a deserted spot, San gave her chocolate to encourage her. Suddenly, an incident happened at the event. A little girl accidentally ruined the birthday cake. Lolita stepped up to talk to the little girl, but since the girl didn't understand Thai, she got annoyed and threw the cake at Lolita. Everything was only resolved when Jean appeared and handled the situation perfectly. The girl's mother, knowing Lolita was a member of the VIP team, mocked her for not knowing Chinese and being unable to serve VIP clients. While Lolita felt very embarrassed, the vice president came to save the day, introducing Lolita as his daughter. Jin's service made the little client happy. After that, the vice president intentionally ordered Jean to take pictures for them. Bakat hurriedly grabbed the phone to help. After the event, the vice president introduced the client to Jean. The entire plan for today's event was executed by Jean, but the vice president gave all of Jin's credit to his daughter. Everyone was angry but no one dared to speak up. Bakat also came to apologize to Jean, expressing disagreement with the vice president's way of doing things. Bakat's words at this moment were weak and meaningless. Jean was very heartbroken because of the pain Bakat had caused her. She ran into the nursery, sobbing and pouring her heart out to a teddy bear. San was by her side, comforting and encouraging her, thanks to which Jean felt inspired and decided to find herself again. She didn't expect that San was the one who encouraged her. Taking the opportunity of being given chocolate, Jean sincerely thanked him. Meanwhile, Mina was called in by the marketing manager, asking about what happened at the vice president's family party and why the vice president was unhappy with Jean. The marketing manager used the video she secretly filmed to threaten her and even prepared to assault her. At this time, Lolita, the woman who looked harmless and innocent, came directly to challenge Jean. She declared that the anonymous message that night was sent by her. Immediately, this girl received a strong slap. What made Jean even angrier was that Lolita calmly declared that she and Bakat were in love, blaming Jean for not caring about Bakat, which forced them to come together. Seeing Lolita didn't realize her mistake, Jean angrily slapped her one more time and couldn't control herself, scolding her profusely, asking how she could throw away her morals like that. Bakat heard the noise and hurriedly came to stop the two of them. Seeing her husband still defending Lolita, Jean angrily ran outside. Bakat didn't chase after his wife but stayed to comfort Lolita. When learning that Lolita's mother passed away, seeing her hugging him and crying, Bakat gently comforted her again. After that, he even took Lolita to the hospital and hugged her to comfort her in tears. Jean stood from afar watching this scene. Her heart breaking. The vice president also witnessed this from afar, realizing his daughter was very dependent on Bakat, so he asked him to help his daughter arrange the funeral. Except for Jean and Mina, other colleagues in the company all went to the temple to pay their respects. The vice president apologized to his daughter for not being able to attend the funeral himself due to identity issues, and at the same time asked his daughter if she truly loved Bakat. Lolita gave an affirmative answer to her father. For his daughter's happiness, he decided to play matchmaker for her and Bakat, ordering the HR department to transfer Jean to another place under the guise of a promotion. Jean received this news and immediately went to the HR department to confirm. After knowing it was true, she hurriedly ran to the vice president's office to express her opinion. She affirmed that she didn't want to be transferred to Phuket. Bakat heard the news and also came to put in a good word for his wife, suggesting that transferring only him to Phuket would be fine. However, the vice president didn't agree with Bakat's suggestion, and even strongly threatened that Jean had to leave. Bakat still tried to reassure his wife, saying he would apply for a transfer elsewhere himself, but Jean thought Bakat was just pretending to be a nice guy. She was heartbroken not only because of losing her lover, but also because of the risk of losing the job she was passionate about. In a fit of anger, she thought about killing Lolita. She even stepped hard on the gas, wanting to crash the car into Lolita, but slammed on the brakes at the last minute, only using this action to threaten and vent her anger. On the other hand, the marketing manager, wanting to eliminate his older brother to climb to a higher position, showed his father the video of his brother wanting to overthrow him. The father then called the two brothers in and announced his decision. He decided to appoint a new president for the company. The person appointed was their older sister, Chinette. This decision made the two brothers feel extremely surprised. Chinette was very happy and quickly returned from abroad, expressing gratitude to her father for appointing her as president. The vice president went to find his father to ask why he decided that way. The father explained that the video was the reason causing him to change his decision. Initially, he planned to appoint the older brother as president, but the video made him think again. He scolded his son for his carelessness in letting this sensitive video leak. The father finally officially announced the decision to appoint his daughter, Chinette, as the new president, messing up the vice president's plan. The vice president then warned his daughter and Bakat to be cautious, because their career advancement would not be as easy as before. He advised them not to let Chinette know about their affair, because otherwise she would use that information to attack them. When Chinette learned that Jean, the leader of the VIP team, was about to be transferred elsewhere, she actively sought to meet Jean to ask for the reason. Jean decided to keep it a secret, only chatting politely with Chinette. When the vice president saw the two talking, he immediately called Jean in to ask what she told his sister. Jean affirmed that she didn't reveal anything, but the vice president still didn't stop suspecting. To settle everything, the vice president decided not to transfer Jean elsewhere, and said he would cancel the transfer order himself. On the other hand, the marketing manager acted for personal gain, deleted data on the computer, and demanded Mina's husband stay up all night to recover the data. Turned out, last time at the hotel, Mina was almost insulted by the marketing manager. Luckily, her husband arrived in time to prevent the tragedy from happening. Mina confessed to her husband that she secretly filmed the video, and the video leaked during the shareholder meeting was her work. That was exactly why she was bullied by the marketing manager. Feeling guilty for implicating her husband, Mina went to the marketing manager to beg him to let her husband off the hook. But not only did she not get help, he also had bad intentions toward Mina. Luckily, Jean and Baibon arrived in time to save her. Mina cried and confessed to everyone that she had secretly filmed the video. She showed remorse for betraying her team and cried, begging for everyone's forgiveness. Witnessing Mina's sincere remorse, they comforted her, saying not to worry, and that they would find a way to deal with that bad guy together. To protect Mina, they went to find the marketing manager to talk, demanding he stop harassing their team member. They warned that if he continued, they would reveal to the vice president that he was the one behind filming the video. The marketing manager had to stop harassing Mina. Meanwhile, Bakat went with Lolita to commemorate her mother. To keep Bakat, Lolita mentioned her mother's final wish. Turned out that before, Bakat had promised Lolita's mother that he would always take good care of her. This scene was overheard by a female colleague in the company who likes to gossip. When she returned, she told everything to her colleagues. Coincidentally, Jean heard all of that. Jean tried to act strong, saying it was fine. But when she was about to enter the office, she saw her husband and Lolita being affectionate again. Witnessing this scene, Jean was extremely miserable. She hurriedly closed the door and ran out, then went up to the rooftop to regain her spirit. Mina and Baibon both came to comfort and encourage her to be strong and keep moving forward. Jean finally calmed down again. But an event happened that made her feel ashamed. The vice president's wife told her that Bakat and Lolita were eating together in a private room again. She went to the scene and warned them not to go too far, scolding them for holding hands while doing good deeds. Being intimate in the office wasn't enough, and this time having sweet time in a private room. To express her dissatisfaction, Jean threw the cup on the table to the ground. She told Bakat that her heart was broken just like that broken cup. She declared she wouldn't break up with him, but they shouldn't expect to live happily either. After that, she started insulting Lolita, putting leftovers into her bowl and saying, "It seems she really likes eating other people's leftovers." After Jean left the room, Lolita held Bakat's hand again and burst into tears. She wasn't content that her secret relationship with Bakat would forever remain an affair. The next day, she went with Jean into the elevator and actively started a conversation. Seeing that, Bakat also walked in. Suddenly, the elevator had a problem, stopped, and couldn't open the door. Lolita said that Bakat wasn't leftovers, and since Jean felt he was no longer valuable to her, Lolita asked Jean to set Bakat free. She even said she would make her father transfer them elsewhere so Jean wouldn't have to see them anymore. But Jean was determined to drag them down to hell together. Lolita immediately knelt down to beg Jean to forgive them. Everyone witnessed the vice president's daughter kneeling before an employee. Those who knew the story understood what it was about, but when Chinette saw this scene, she also seemed to guess something. The vice president once again scolded Bakat, telling him to control his woman better so things like this wouldn't happen again. Then he called all three to the office. Turned out, Chinette found out that Jean and Bakat had separated. This made the vice president very angry. He was worried that the VIP team scandal could affect his career. Jean immediately proposed a solution. She demanded Bakat move back in to live together to soothe Chinette's suspicion. To provoke Lolita, Jean even filmed a video of Bakat returning home and posted their intimate images online. Just as Jean predicted, seeing the video, Lolita cried out of heartbreak. The next day, when Jean and Bakat went to work together, they discovered Lolita was secretly watching them. Jean intentionally linked arms with Bakat, acting intimate to make Lolita angry. Lolita immediately asked Jean, "Do you still love Bakat? Whether I love him or not, what does it have to do with you? If I say I still love him, will you back off? I still love him. You get out of his life." That day, Jean unexpectedly came to their house, giving them a pair of lovebird decorations, a symbol of love. She even intentionally mentioned that Lolita also wished to live in a house like this. Bakat and Jean immediately understood Chinit's intention. She wanted them to break up, because this would affect the business results of the VIP team. On the other hand, because the business results were not good, the marketing director angrily scolded the manager. He demanded the manager continue pressuring Mina to provide information about the VIP team. Afterward, the marketing manager went to the women's restroom to find Mina and prepared to do something wrong to her. At the last minute, Baibon arrived and saved her. Finally, Mina escaped, but both of them were brutally beaten by this guy. Baibon was determined not to let the bad guy do any more harm, so she decided to expose the marketing manager's evil behavior. She used her real name to report his sexual harassment behavior online. Turned out a year ago, Baibon had been harmed by the marketing manager. She shared her tragic story online and everyone reading the report felt heartbroken. Colleagues came to comfort Baibon, bringing her warmth and support. Jean also went to find the marketing manager and scolded him severely, even using the car door to jam his leg to vent her anger. Angry, this manager drove his car and hit Jean. Seeing his wife with an injured leg, the husband hurriedly hugged her, wanting to show a husband's care for his wife. This was their first intimate contact since the rift appeared in their relationship. Jean did not forgive her husband at all. She didn't want to have any eye contact with him. Bakat could only silently carry his wife into the office to check her wound. Seeing his wife refuse to go to the hospital, he devotedly helped her apply ice. Just then, Lolita accidentally witnessed everything. She thought they would make up like before and couldn't hold back her feelings, silently standing behind tormenting herself. In a state of distraction, Lolita was even hit by a car while crossing the road. She used this as an excuse to call Bakat to the hospital for help. This entire conversation was seen by Jean. Bakat rushed to the hospital and discovered that Lolita only had a slight scratch. However, he still took Lolita back to his apartment but discovered that the vice president had been waiting there beforehand. The vice president scolded them terribly, blaming them for not knowing how to avoid trouble. If Jeanette knew about this, she would use it to attack him. Afterward, the vice president confiscated Bakat's apartment card and forced him to return, while instructing his daughter that if anything happened in the future, don't bother Bakat anymore but call him instead. But what he didn't expect was that the very next day, Lolita secretly gave the room card back to Bakat. Just as they were exchanging the room card, Jean witnessed it and thought they were having intimate gestures in secret. This made Jean, the legal wife, feel extremely angry. She blamed them for being shameless and not avoiding rumors. Jean complained that the previous night she had asked the vice president to teach them a lesson, and she thought after that they would know better. However, now all those efforts seemed to have no effect. Although Bakat tried to explain that his wife misunderstood, Jean affirmed that she didn't trust her husband. Bakat not only felt helpless in solving family problems, but even the business work gave him a constant headache. Even the old father called a family meeting to discuss the incident that caused the company's stock price to drop. He demanded his two sons manage the personnel in their teams well, and quickly resolve this crisis. The bad guy, to prove that Baibon was slandering him, publicly posted a video of Baibon dancing with a man online, aiming to prove that Baibon was a woman who liked being close to men. Not long after, the scandal of the manager and Baibon was spread widely. Jeanette then held a press conference, announcing that the company would actively protect women's rights, and announcing the firing of the marketing manager. This received a warm welcome from everyone. Finally, the marketing manager was kicked out of the company. Jeanette's statement made the company's stock price skyrocket immediately, and she even received praise from her elderly father. He also asked his two sons to learn from their sister's decisiveness. Jeanette also arranged for her own person to work under her younger brother, replacing the position of the fired marketing manager. The vice president saw that his sister wouldn't leave his younger brother alone, so he went to talk to Bakat, reminding him that the VIP department was not allowed to have any mistakes, especially regarding his women issues. But what the vice president didn't expect was that his daughter, Lolita, still clung to Bakat without leaving. Lolita called asking Bakat what her father said and worried that he would abandon her to make up with his wife. Afterward, Lolita knew that Bakat had not reconciled with Jean at all. Currently, only Jean was punishing Bakat. She wanted to help Bakat a little, but he said that the best way to help him was to do nothing. However, Lolita didn't listen to Bakat. That day, the department decided to have dinner outdoors. Bakat said he didn't feel well and wanted to go home to sleep. Lolita also found an excuse to decline attending the dinner. What no one expected was that Lolita took advantage of the time Jean went to dinner to run to Bakat's house under the pouring rain. Bakat came out to open the door and was surprised to see Lolita soaked. He asked her what she came here for. Turned out, Lolita heard he wasn't feeling well, so she specially stewed herbal medicine to bring over. She reminded him to take the medicine and rest well. Bakat's heart softened when seeing Lolita soaking wet. He brought her into the house to change clothes. But what Bakat didn't know was that while having dinner, Jean, when knowing her husband was sick, worriedly checked the surveillance camera. She saw Bakat giving clothes to Lolita to change and the scene of Lolita appearing in her house. This action of crossing the line made Jean extremely angry. She called the vice president to witness their shameless behavior. The vice president saw his daughter and Bakat clinging to each other again, worried that their scandal would affect his career, so he angrily scolded them terribly. Lolita even argued back with her father, saying she brought medicine because she cared about Bakat, and affirmed her love for him was real. She didn't care what others thought about her. The daughter's words made the vice president so angry that he poured the medicine on her head. When Bakat came to intervene, he was also slapped by the vice president. Finally, the vice president dragged his daughter home. Bakat also tried to explain to his wife, "I didn't bring Lolita home. I wasn't the one who brought her here. But she entered our house thanks to you opening the door. It's just like you allowed her to step into our relationship." Bakat at this moment didn't know what to say to refute his wife. The next day, Jean sought the vice president again, demanding he compensate by bond for the injury she suffered as a work accident. She also proposed allowing female employees to take leave when on their period. Jean threatened the vice president to agree to her demands, otherwise, she would reveal the team scandal to his sister. Bakat overheard this conversation and advised Jean not to use threatening tactics with the vice president, because he wouldn't let himself be forced. But Jean was still determined to do so and even intentionally mocked and humiliated Bakat. Not long after, the team really received a notice about benefits for women, and everyone guessed that was the result of Jin's struggle. Chinette heard this news and came to ask her younger brother why he made such a decision, and even mocked that he was forced by Jean. Chinette constantly found ways to divide the relationship between the vice president and Jean. The vice president worried that his sister would find out something, so he went to Lolita's apartment, helped her pack her luggage, and forced her to move back home to live with her stepmother. The stepmother also pretended to welcome Lolita's appearance. The vice president reminded his daughter again to live properly and not cause any more trouble. To stop his daughter from continuing to be entangled with Bakat, he even sent people to follow her every step. When Chinette witnessed this scene, she asked Lolita the reason, but Lolita found a way to avoid the question. Suddenly, the vice president appeared and took his daughter back home. Seeing she couldn't ask anything, Chinette sought Jean to ask about the matter, and even suggested Jean quit her job and move to work in her team. However, Jean refused that kind offer, saying that because of the VIP team, she couldn't help but oppose Chinette. Lolita saw her aunt and Jean chatting again. She worried Jean might have revealed her scandal, so she hurriedly ran after them to ask what they talked about. She begged Jean not to tell her aunt about her and Bakat, worrying that it would cause trouble for Bakat. To provoke Lolita, Jean intentionally threatened her. Believing it was true, Lolita hurriedly went to report to her father. The vice president immediately came to ask Jean if she really revealed information to Chinette. Jean affirmed she hadn't said anything yet and threatened the vice president not to bother her, otherwise she really might say something. The vice president was threatened by Jean, feeling angry and worried that Jean might betray him. So he asked Bakat to give Jean a sum of money to settle this matter, but Jean refused to compromise. She angrily tore that check apart. Jean's attitude made Bakat very worried. He knew that the vice president wouldn't let it go easily, so even though he was humiliated by Jean, he still decided to stay by his wife's side to make amends, and at the same time worried even more for Jin's safety. In fact, his prediction was right. The vice president was preparing to use a plot against Jean. He ordered the company's technical department to record Jean entering the warehouse in the system, and ordered them to delete the surveillance video of that night in advance. For this reason, people framed Jean for stealing the company's property. The next day, the inspection agency came to the warehouse to check, and discovered a lot of branded bags were missing. According to the records, only Jean entered the warehouse last night, and because of that she was accused of theft. Although Jean tried to explain to the vice president that she didn't steal at all, the system only recorded that only she entered the warehouse that night. The vice president required her to choose between resigning or being transferred to another place. Not accepting this, Jean asked to review the surveillance camera images, but was informed that she wasn't allowed to watch without the vice president's consent. Bakat also trusted that his wife couldn't possibly steal the company's property. He thought this was a plot set up by the vice president targeting his wife, and sincerely knelt down to beg the vice president for forgiveness. When seeing the vice president didn't accept his apology, Bakat decided to sacrifice himself to take the fall for Jean. He returned home and comforted his wife that she didn't need to worry because he would handle everything. Jean didn't believe that her husband would solve this crisis for her. When Lolita heard the news, she also came to advise her father not to hurt Jean and to help her. However, her father scolded that she was just pretending to be a nice person, and even said she was stupid just like her mother. Lolita said her father shouldn't criticize her mother, and complained that her father never raised her. As a result, The father and daughter also parted unhappily. The vice president's wife later sought Jean, revealing that for many years, Bakat had continuously solved problems related to women for the vice president, always using money on his behalf to break up with them. Jean was very shocked to know this. She took the photos and questioned Bakat. He explained that because of his career he was forced to do so. Jean couldn't believe the man she once admired and was willing to entrust her whole life to do such evil things. She thought that his relationship with Lolita was also just to climb the corporate ladder, and at this moment, Jean felt extremely disappointed in Bakat. The next day, Jean was informed by Mina that the warehouse entry card wasn't hers but had been planted by someone else, and all the videos from that night had been wiped clean. Jean was sure this was an intentional act by the vice president to smear her. She angrily took the photos of Bakat and Lolita's relationship to threaten the vice president, demanding he withdraw the accusations. This time, the vice president wasn't afraid of Jean's threat. He pointed out that after the scandal was exposed, he would send his daughter to study abroad and would take legal action against Jean. The vice president believed Jean wouldn't risk her career, because a criminal record could ruin all of her efforts throughout her life. Meanwhile, Lolita accidentally saw Bakat writing a resignation letter, so she hurriedly went to find Jean to beg. Jean angrily scolded Lolita for her shamelessness, asking why she had to suffer the consequences for their mistakes. After scolding Lolita, Jean calmed down and thought about how to handle this crisis. Constantly thinking about the vice president's warning, Bakat came to comfort Jean, telling her not to worry and saying that he would resign to take responsibility. Jean, being falsely accused of theft by her boss, decided to fight him to the very end. That day, she said she wasn't feeling well and refused to attend the anniversary celebration. Before leaving, Bakat told his wife that she didn't need to worry, as he would ask the vice president not to transfer her to another place. At the event, Chinette, the company president, spoke first. Then the company leaders went on stage to take photos. When it came to the free time of the event, Bakat stepped up to ask the vice president to forgive Jean. To support Jean, the colleagues also proposed a mass resignation. Chinette came over to ask what they were discussing. Bibon said that 2 branded bags in the warehouse were missing. Just as she was about to say more, a sudden incident happened at the scene. They saw many papers falling from the high building. Everyone witnessing this scene couldn't help but be surprised. This was Jin's masterpiece in challenging the vice president. After picking up and looking at the photos, everyone started pointing fingers at Lolita and Bakat. Bakat realized something was wrong and hurriedly let go of Lolita's hand. The marketing director saw the photos and immediately understood what was happening. He immediately took the photos to his father and said that his older brother's daughter and an employee were having a relationship. The old man saw the photos and became serious. He scolded his son and criticized his granddaughter's behavior for damaging the company's reputation. On the other hand, after throwing the photos, Jean put on sunglasses and walked away in style. That night, she received advice from her husband again. Bakat criticized his wife for being too extreme and said that her behavior had hurt many people. He worried that the vice president might harm his wife, but Jean wasn't afraid at all. Bakat's prediction was also correct. The next day, the vice president issued a notice suspending Jin's work, saying that she was accused of stealing. When Jean saw the notice, she was helpless and pasted a photo of Bakat and Lolita on it as a form of protest. She accidentally met Lolita and frankly admitted that she scattered the photos because of her. Lolita begged Jean to help Bakat clear the rumors, and she would ask her father to reconsider Jin's suspension. Angry, Jean dragged Lolita into the office and publicly exposed her shameless request. Chinette told her father that she had forbidden employees from leaking the photos. The old man praised his daughter for doing a good job and asked his son to thank his sister. But the good situation didn't last long. Images and videos were spread online and quickly became top news. The scandal immediately caused the company's stock price to drop. The old man was very angry about this incident and scolded his son severely. Meanwhile, Chinette was secretly happy because actually, this leak was intentionally done by her to eliminate her younger brother. When the images and videos were spreading like crazy, Lolita was pointed at and gossiped about wherever she went. When Bakat's mother heard the news, she ran to slap her son and scolded him frankly. The mother-in-law even knelt down to apologize to Jean for not raising her son well. That night, Bakat also packed his bags and moved out of the house. Jean just silently watched him leave. The next day, she received an investigation call from the police. The vice president had accused her of theft and asked the police to arrest her. Jean was forced to go to the police station for investigation. Bakat also came to show care for his wife, but Jean didn't accept her husband's concern. After leaving the police station, she declared war on the vice president, saying that she would turn the tables and accuse him of slander. The vice president ordered security to kick Jean out of the company. Just then, Chinette came to save Jean, saying that she had found the lost bag in another warehouse, thereby helping to clear the suspicion of theft for her. Chinette then also informed her father of this event. The old man was angry because his son acted foolishly again, so he gave more power to manage the company to his daughter. To put on a show in front of his father, the vice president suspended his daughter and Bakat. Lolita pretended to be pitiful again, apologized to Bakat, saying that everything was caused by her, and shamelessly hugged him. Bakat had to push her away and leave. Seeing that she couldn't sway Bakat, Lolita shamelessly went to find Jean to beg her to stop. Jean didn't want to waste time talking to Lolita, so she turned off the lights and ordered her to get out of there. The next day, Jean received an appointment from Chinette to replace Bakat as the VIP director. Chinette also officially announced this decision. After carefully applying makeup and dressing up, Jean confidently went to the company to work. Her colleagues threw confetti to celebrate. When seeing the notice, the vice president was uncontrollably angry. He tore up the notice and got mad at his sister. But since his sister was now the president of the company, he could only complain. Chinette tried to convince Jean again, suggesting she lead the entire VIP team to her side, but Jean, needing to stand firm in the company, tactfully refused Chinette's offer. The vice president thought of a new way to deal with her. Have Bakat set up a new team to compete with Jean. The goal was to steal VIP clients and dissolve this team. Although Bakat told Jean that this wouldn't affect her work, Jean no longer believed in his goodwill. When seeing Lolita bragging that she and Bakat would work together, and even saying that their personal relationship would start again, Jean challenged Lolita, "Just try and see." On the very first day of work, the two teams had conflicts due to overlapping tasks and clients. Both the VIP team's anniversary and the launch day of the privileged team were scheduled on the same day. Foreign clients and VIP clients of the VIP team had to be transferred to the privileged team. Lolita even took over the position of VIP brand manager. Although the current situation was very disadvantageous for the VIP team, Jean still encouraged the members to try hard to work, proving that their team was not without ability. Later, Lolita clung to Bakat to go to dinner, declaring that their relationship didn't need to be hidden anymore. However, she was rejected by Bakat. Bakat said that he had told her many times that he could only take care of her. Lolita asked why they couldn't be together, but Bakat didn't say the reason and used an excuse to avoid her. After work, Bakat went to visit Jean, but Lolita followed him and saw the whole thing. She intentionally called Bakat to interrupt their conversation. Bakat lied that he wanted to go to sleep and quickly hung up. Then he gave the food he had prepared to his wife. However, Jean still didn't accept Bakat's affection. Seeing Bakat lie to her, Lolita cried out of heartbreak. The next day, when Jean went to look for a venue for the event, she discovered that Lolita and Bakat had gotten there first. Hearing Lolita pretending to say she would find another place, Jean intentionally mocked. "No need to find a new shop, since you guys can share so many other things." After work, Jean went up to the roof to check the venue and found that Lolita had also come there. Seeing that she wanted to give a fake explanation again, Jean didn't want to get involved and hurried to leave, but she discovered the door lock was broken. Suddenly, it started pouring rain. Jean immediately notified San to come to the roof to open the door. After everyone called the locksmith, Bakat was the first person to step onto the roof to hand over an umbrella. Seeing the two of them, he hesitated, not knowing what to do. Luckily, San helped him get out of that situation by taking Jean away. At this moment, Bakat's emotions were all over the place. A colleague asked why he did that. Bakat thought that even if he gave the umbrella to Jean, she would still choose to ignore him and leave alone. Not long after that, he received a text message from Lolita. Although he chose not to reply, Lolita still called to check up on him. Bakat could only politely brush it off. Meanwhile, Jean didn't contact her husband. She couldn't help but feel sad when recalling Bakat's action of handing over the umbrella that day. The next day, when Lolita asked her for VIP client information, Jean took out a pile of documents for Lolita to organize and analyze herself. Wanting to beat Jean, Lolita stayed up all night analyzing client data. Knowing that the vice president was using his personal power to eliminate Jean, Bakat was worried about her. So he went to find her late at night, telling her that to help the VIP team, she had to follow Chinette's lead. Only then could she go against the vice president. Jean decided to listen to Bakat's advice. That day, the two teams organized events on the same day at the same hotel. They were all enthusiastically serving big spending clients. In the end, the privileged team earned 7 million, while the VIP team earned 28 million. Chinette mocked the privileged team's poor performance, but the vice president bragged that both teams' achievements were under his name. However, the father's next decision made him crumble. Their father announced that from today, he would assign Chinette to manage the VIP team, and at the same time, put the vice president and his sister in a position to compete to prove who was more capable of managing the company. The final winner would become the real president. Lolita knew she still lost to Jean, so she tried to win Bakat over by acting pitiful and hugging him to seek comfort. Jean witnessed this scene, but this time she didn't step up to intervene. Chinette also came to tell Jean that they had to try their best to fight in the near future, because from now on their team and the privileged team were enemies. She demanded the VIP team become the only winner. The next day, Jin and Bakat both received a final mission from their superiors. Jin's VIP team would cooperate with Bakat's privilege team on a project named Black Diamond. In this project, regardless of the client level, whichever team made the client spend the most would win, and the losing team would be dissolved. Since the project was initiated by the vice president, the privilege team had the right to choose clients first. Lolita tried to find out the preferences of high-quality clients. When she handed the remaining client list to Jin praised her for doing a very good job. Lolita intentionally said it was thanks to Bakat's help and bragged that he cared about her. Jin coldly responded to Lolita's confidence, saying that Bakat was so worried about her that he came to her house in the middle of the night and even advised her to join Chinit's team. Lolita didn't believe Jin's words, so she went to find Bakat to confirm it. She received an affirmative answer. Even knowing that Bakat was worried about Jin, she still made an unreasonable demand that Bakat not get back together with Jin. Bakat just avoided the subject and found a way to leave. Knowing that Bakat didn't care about her, Lolita kept calling him, but he never answered the phone. Her stepmother couldn't stand this scene and advised her to have some self-respect and stop harassing Bakat. The VIP team and the privilege team prepared for the final showdown. Jin worked until late at night looking for clients, discovering that many quality clients had been approached by the privilege team first. The situation was very disadvantageous for the VIP team. Lolita also produced a list of clients who had confirmed attendance at the event, telling the VIP team not to fight for clients on that list. Seeing Lolita so smug, Jin poured cold water on her. Clients chose the privilege team not because of you. That is not the result of your hard work. Lolita still thought it was the fruit of her hard work. Lolita texted Bakat to ask him out for lunch, but she saw Bakat and his wife leaving together in a car. Unable to stand it, Lolita immediately took a taxi to follow them. When she saw Bakat wasn't answering her calls, she recklessly rushed into the flower shop to demand to know what they were doing. Being an unrecognized mistress herself, Lolita demanded that Bakat and Jin not be together. Toward a shameless person like Lolita, Jin just pretended not to see her, wanting nothing to do with her. Bakat also pulled Lolita out, advising her to stop. Seeing that she couldn't stop Lolita, Jin said that today was the death anniversary of their child. Shameless as ever, Lolita even followed them to the temple. Waiting for Jin to leave, Lolita advised Bakat not to be sad and said she would try her best to make him happy. Chinette also encouraged Jin to fight for herself. If she lost, it meant that all her previous efforts would go down the drain. So, the VIP team started working overtime to find clients, accidentally discovering a mysterious female client whom no one knew. Jin learned that only Bakat knew her, and he was refused when he asked for her contact number. Her husband's action made Jin very curious. She immediately reported it to Chinette. Chinette asked the vice president about this, but he said he didn't remember. He then instructed his daughter not to let others recognize that woman. However, San happened to meet that female client and hurriedly informed Jin. She immediately went to host this client. When she intended to find out more information, the client was taken away by Bakat's call. When Jin went to find Bakat to demand an explanation, Lolita also advised her not to provoke that woman if she didn't want trouble. Lolita's threat made Jin even angrier and determined to find out the truth. Finally, after much effort, she found the answer. It turned out that woman was the vice president's mistress, and also one of the shareholders of a rival company. This means the vice president is playing both sides, and could harm the company at any time. If this secret is known by the old man, he surely won't let it go. The vice president, afraid of the exposure, immediately asked Bakat to take that woman abroad to hide. That day, the Black Diamond auction event started. Both the VIP team and the privilege team enthusiastically served customers. The auction officially started. Although the privilege team had many high-quality customers, the VIP team's sales were not far behind. The vice president, to completely win, came up with a plan to cause trouble. Knowing Mr. Batana gets crazy when drunk, he asked the waiter to bring more wine to him. Soon Mr. Batana got drunk and caused trouble. Jin stepped up to stop him, only getting slightly injured but unfortunately was pushed down the stairs. Jin fell and hit her head, bled and fainted. Bakat hurriedly took his wife to the hospital for emergency treatment. Luckily, the doctor announced that Jin had nothing serious. This moment, Bakat realized he loved his wife very much. When Jin woke up, she changed her mind. She remembered the beautiful memories when they first met and fell in love, along with the painful images when discovering her husband's affair. After the incident, she realized life is short, and they shouldn't continue living in mutual hatred. Jin let go of all animosity and told her husband that they should end everything. Really, I don't want to go anywhere because I love you. Always like that. I never stopped loving you. Bakat's confession to his wife was heard by Lolita outside the hospital room. She finally realized that Bakat never loved her. On the other hand, the old man also received the final result of the event. The privileged team led the VIP team by $100,000. The vice president thereby became the general director of the company. However, Jeanette didn't give up hope and asked Jean about that mysterious woman. Jean, for Bacot's benefit, didn't reveal the truth to Jeanette, but Jeanette convinced her sister-in-law to go abroad together to find that woman. This moment, the vice president was still celebrating winning. To show mercy, he let the VIP team be responsible for the money from the charity auction, an event led by Jean, who just got out of the hospital. But what he didn't expect was that Jean announced the auction money was donated to a charity fund, and the head of that fund was that mysterious woman. The vice president saw that woman and immediately froze. To protect the VIP team, she used the vice president's secret to threaten him. She asked Bacot to convey to the vice president not to dissolve the VIP team, otherwise she would reveal his secret. Upon knowing this, the vice president didn't dare do anything to the VIP team. But what he didn't expect was that the father still knew his secret. He was discovered by his father about betraying the company, betraying the family to protect himself. The old man was angry and fired his son, taking back all his shares. The vice president was reprimanded by his father and kicked out of the house. Bacot and Lolita were also implicated, losing jobs and honor. Bacot packed his things preparing to leave the company, but Jean didn't mind the past and came to comfort him, hugging Bacot to encourage him. Bacot thanked Jean for her understanding and support. The scene of them hugging was once again witnessed by Lolita. This time, Lolita completely gave up her feelings for Bacot. So, she made an appointment to meet Bacot to announce her decision, saying that she finally realized he only had pity for her and took care of her only because of work responsibility. She decided to follow her father's arrangement and start a new life abroad. Afterward, she went to Jin's house, announced her decision, admitted her mistakes as well as apologized sincerely to Jean. After being fired by the company, the vice president sought the rival company to be a senior director, but was refused because they didn't want to cooperate with the person who betrayed his father and family. Company. Bacot also set a clear boundary with the vice president, declaring he wouldn't follow his orders anymore and wanted to start a new life. The vice president not only lost his career but even his wife wanted to divorce him. In an instant he became a person with nothing. Meanwhile, Jean continued to return to work at the VIP team, leading employees to continue creating brilliant achievements. The office atmosphere every day was full of laughter. Thanks to the team's efforts, the company's sales in the recent quarter increased by 80%. The old man was very satisfied with his daughter's management. Later, Bon was promoted to VIP manager and developed a romantic relationship with the male colleague who pursued her. Mina gave birth to the third child smoothly. The family of 4 was happy and fulfilled. Jean became the VIP sales director, while San also started pursuing Jean crazily. In short, everyone's work and life were progressing well. Meanwhile, Bacot's life became terrible. Because of the firing record, no one wanted to hire him. He finally had to switch to another job to make a living. Relying on a meager salary, he couldn't even afford a luxurious lunchbox. Jean accidentally witnessed this and couldn't help but feel sorry for Bacot, remembering their happy days. Kind-hearted Jean sold the car Bacot left behind and through her mother-in-law, gave money to Bacot to help him overcome difficulties. When knowing Jin's intention, Bacot was extremely moved. He called Jean saying he wanted to return that money, but Jean firmly told him to take it because it was originally his car. Bacot saw Jean managing the VIP team very well. Under her leadership, the VIP team developed more and more. He silently rejoiced for her and remembered the sweet moments and efforts together. He regretted not cherishing Jean, but now everything was too late. Not long after, they met again at a funeral. Bacot saw Jean and the male colleague wearing couple bracelets and her knowing smile. After so long, he knew he had lost Jean forever. Finally, they talked like old friends, and he hoped she would always smile like today. Jean said she had completely overcome the past and truly forgave him. Before parting, they told each other to take care of themselves like old friends caring for each other. And the story of the VIP department also closed completely. Thank you for watching the whole movie. Sincerely thank you and see you again.